Left of the box. So yes, election in Canada coming up in the very near future. It would have come up in the future, but now it's like the very near future. There was going to be one this year anyway. It's just being moved up a bit because Justin Trudeau has resigned, but he's not resigned yet. He's going to resign. He's announced that he will resign as prime minister. So he is still technically prime minister right now. We still have a functional government. It's just nothing is happening in parliament at this moment. But he's been still semi-quiet on a lot of the big news stories of the day, such as, Trump threatening the tariffs and whatnot. So he went down to Mar-a-Lago to, try to make friends with Donald Trump, which, it didn't play well, considering that there was Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, who was actually being strong on the issue. And so then everything got preoccupied with the whole resignation thing and what was happening in his own government, that there wasn't too many more comments on it. But now that Justin Trudeau is officially stepping down, he's starting to grow a little bit more strong in his opposition, getting a little bit more bones. So he tweeted out, not a snowball's chance in hell, Canada will ever be the 51st state, which was just super campy and too little too late. Well, there's more too little too late, as he's finally gone on to CNN after Doug Ford has already done the circuit. Doug Ford has already been on like half a dozen, at a minimum, news organizations pushing back against Donald Trump. This is the first time Justin Trudeau has gone on, but that's because he was in the area anyway, because of the funeral for Carter in the United States. And so then he stopped by CNN to talk about some things. So we're starting this just a couple minutes into the 10-minute long video, because the first things are just like, ooh, wildfires in LA are bad. And yeah, I was at the funeral. And then we get more into the Canadian issues of the day.
President-elect Trump has been needling you a bit, calling you Governor Trudeau, talking about making Canada the 51st state. Did you have any interaction with him today?
No, not today. But that's not going to happen. Canadians are incredibly proud of being Canadian. One of the ways we define ourselves most easily is, well, we're not American.
You know how I'm Canadian? It's because I'm not American. That's how you know I'm Canadian. Because I don't identify as American. That was so bad. That was so bad. He said that on CNN. The way that Canadians like to define ourselves is we're not Americans. Yeah, we're not those people. We're something else. What was that? What was that? Everyone in the sandbox, the only reason why all of you out there know I'm Canadian is because I'm covering Canadian politics and not American politics, because, I'm not American. That's how you know I'm Canadian. There's so many other things he could have said there. So many other things. Hey, Soul Life, I see that. You'll be American after Trump takes you. I don't think so.
There is such a depth of pride that that's not actually an issue. What I think is happening in this is President Trump, who's a very skillful negotiator, is getting people to be somewhat distracted by that.
But is he? Is he a skillful negotiator? Or is he just a demanding crybaby?
Conversation to take away from the conversation around 25% tariffs on oil and gas and electricity and steel and aluminum and lumber and concrete, and everything the American consumers buy from Canada is suddenly going to get a lot more expensive if he moves forward on these tariffs. And that's something that I think we need to be focusing on a little bit more.
Did the re-election of Donald Trump and this more direct confrontation with Canada over this issue play any...
Did I change that? This is actually at 1.25 speed. Just so people know, this is slightly sped up, and they just kind of sound normal.
Role at all in your decision to resign as leader of your party and prime minister?
No, on the contrary. What we were able to do during the first presidency of Mr. Trump's was work together in a very challenging situation to come out with a very strong win-win in Canada-U.S. relations with the renegotiation of the USMCA. It is a great deal for both of our countries. We've seen trade grow, we've seen opportunities grow, we've seen wealth grow in both of our countries for workers, for businesses.
Yeah, like when all those people were saying like how much Justin Trudeau was not like Trump, like he's the Prime Minister of Canada because he's not the President of the United States. That's how it works. That is exactly how it works here. He was actually much more in line with a lot of the things that Trump wanted to do, like when it came to like international and trade and things of that sort. Like, yes, there was the tiff between them when Trump started to add tariffs on things and the retaliatory tariffs and stuff. But when it came to things like, exporting weapons to Middle East or pipelines and things of that sort, they tended to get along really well.
Working together concretely is something that we've been able to do in the past, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with him for the next 2 months while I'm still in office.
Let's talk about this potential 25% tariff from the United States on Canada. Economists say that will drive the Canadian economy into a recession, and the Canadian government is preparing retaliatory tariffs if these actually go through. Which do you think would be potentially the most effective against the United States? I don't want them, by the way, just as an American, I don't want these tariffs, but minerals, energy?
We don't want them either. We do.
I say we put tariffs on the right-wingers we export to the United States. How about that? Put tariffs on the right-wingers we export. Well, I guess we can't put tariffs on things we export. That doesn't work. But, potentially that was going to be a just joke there that I totally ruined.
Do not want to see tariffs on our side. We do not want to see tariffs on your side. It's bad for people who have for generations made things together and been successful together to actually start creating barriers between economies like ours. Like, we have so many resources in Canada, more than our market can support, so we export them to our closest friend who can rely on them. It is a win-win for us. We would definitely respond, as we did years ago when President Trump put tariffs on steel and aluminum. We responded by putting tariffs on Heinz ketchup, on playing cards, on bourbon, on Harley Davidsons, on things that...
Did that just sound like he said he puts ketchup on playing cards? Like, I know we're bad for putting ketchup on a lot of things, but to put them on playing cards, that's a bit much. Sorry, it's getting late and I'm getting really weird. The pros and cons of living next to the United States or being neighbors to the United States. Pros, it's very easy for Canadians to travel there. Cons, it's very easy for Americans to travel up here. It's a pretty good joke. Just saying, that was a good joke.
That would hurt American workers. But we don't want to do that because it drives up prices for Canadians and it harms our closest trading partner.
Is there nothing that Donald Trump is saying about trade status and relations right now where you think that he has a point? There's nothing you think that is unfair?
I mean, the conversation around tariffs started around border concerns. And what I spoke with him about in Mar-a-Lago was the fact that less than 1% of migrants into the United States, less than 1% of fentanyl into the United States comes from Canada. But there are absolutely more things we can do.
And you pledged $1 billion to enhance border security.
And we're strengthening. That's a clear win for President Trump that got us to do even more to reduce even further the minimal amounts coming in.
And we do know, like I think everyone at least does know that most fentanyl that gets into the United States go through legal ports of entry. Like, that is known, is it not, at this point? It's just never brought up in this context, but it is known, I hope.
On trade, there's more that we can do, but we should be focused on making sure that we're replacing Chinese lithium or Chinese germanium or Russian titanium into American productions by relying on your closest and friendliest trading partner in Canada. We can be a strong supplier of things that the U.S. needs to compete around the world because we can do it together. That's the argument.
Do you need more right-wingers to compete around the world? Because we have a whole bunch more we can export to you.
That I'm making.
So the struggle that you were...
That and attractive Ryans for your movies.
Having domestically, your disapproval rating had to do with, as I understand it, discontent with your government because of high inflation and the economy, and also because of immigration policies. Those are also issues that the left-wing party in this country has faced a lot of disapproval of and just lost an election over. It seems like voters in both of these, liberal democracies are sending a message to left-wing parties, liberal parties. We don't like how you're doing the economy when it comes to inflation. We don't like how you're doing immigration.
And we saw exactly what happened in the United States, and you said, you know what? We're going to do that too. That looks good. Why don't we give that a go? Not change anything, just do exactly what didn't work in the United States.
There are a lot of feelings involved. I mean, if you look at the actual numbers, inflation in Canada was lower, came down quicker. Our economy bounced back faster after the pandemic than anyone else's, including the United States. We're projected to grow faster than the United States and all other G7 countries next year. Our economy is doing very well. But when someone's paying $8 for a head of lettuce, it doesn't matter that you're doing better than they are in Spain or somewhere else. There's a sense that, okay.
Sorry, is it really $8 for a head of lettuce right now? Like, is that why I don't eat salads anymore? This is how bad it's been right now. Is when I go to a grocery store, I just avoid that section altogether. Like produce, fresh produce. I just avoid that section altogether because bang for the buck type thing. Well, I would like to have healthier foods like fresh fruits and veggies. A cheap bag of chips will sustain me longer than an apple.
Something's got to give. And that's where incumbents are in trouble everywhere everywhere around the world, not just in our two countries. The issue, though, is that in a time of crisis, responsible politics is around focusing on things that actually make a real difference in people's lives. We delivered $10 a day childcare. We're delivering a dental care program that provides free dental care to people who don't have coverage. We're moving forward on.
So that was $10 a day childcare to some people, not all people. That was dental care to some people, not all people who needed it. Because lots of people need it that don't get it. In fact, the majority, vast majority of people who need it haven't gotten it under the Liberals. But they like to take credit for it anyway, even though it was the NDP that pushed them to do it in the first place.
On putting a price on pollution that puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, of middle-class Canadians. These are policies that are not short-term. They're policies that will have a deep impact in the well-being of Canadians and of our country for years to come. Now, you can take those policies, like a childcare policy, and say, oh, see, that's just about wokeness and about women's rights. Well, no, it's about getting more women into the workforce at a time where we need economic growth. That's what it is. But when you get I was going to say conflagration, but at least an intersection of both right-wing policy, right-wing attacks and social media, you end up with a lot of misinformation, disinformation, and responsible governments have to stay focused on the policies that are making a difference, and that's what we've been doing.
I know you
Okay, just catching out that I was totally going to say that right. Just catching out the side of my eye. That's not how you say it. And now I can't remember. Oh my God. Being dyslexic and having this late night thing, just not go. Catching it out of the, I'm seeing it in my peripheral vision anyway. Just wanted to say, Bad Lefty, maybe in some airplane access only Arctic towns, talking about really, really high grocery prices, which is the case when you live in northern communities during the winter, where the only access is through planes for goods and services and stuff. Grocery prices are astronomically high.
You have to go before you go. I know you're not going to say who you want to succeed you, but whether it's Wayne Gretzky or Christina Friedland, what's your number one piece of advice for your successor when it comes to...
Jack Taper did a funny, Tapper, not Taper. It makes it really hard to clip these segments the later I go without me sounding really weird. Jake Tapper made a funny about see your successor going to be Wayne Gretzky or Chrystia Freeland because, Donald Trump wants it to be Wayne Gretzky, even though Wayne Gretzky isn't a liberal because he's friends with Donald Trump.
President Trump.
Understand that the win-win is what we need. Making sure that everyone understands that we do better when we work together, that yes, the American president has a capacity to hurt the Canadian economy. There's no question about that. But anything an American president does to hurt the Canadian economy will also hurt American consumers, American workers, and American growth. We do better when we work together to take on the world, whether it's China or Russia or anywhere else. When we work together, we can't be stopped. And that's the focus that we need to have. And that's certainly what I continue to work on with President Trump.
Prime Minister Trudeau.
Okay, so in order to run for leadership of the Liberal Party, there's a certain time you have to be registered by the 27th of January. Now, I would like to run for leader of the Liberal Party, you know, make them go a little bit more leftwards. Like, I know I don't stand a chance of winning, but, you know, I could be a message candidate for the Liberal Party of Canada. Now, let's see if there's any barriers for me. Let's see. Don't autoplay. You're going autoplay.
And Jeremy Schroen.
Looking down at the title there. $350,000 fundraising threshold for a Liberal leadership race. So between now and the 27th, I need a few more super chats. Just a few more so that I can reach that threshold of $350,000 so that I can run for the leadership of the Liberal Party. Because, you know, the way that, you know, a democracy works is that anyone has the potential to run for office. Anyone. It's barrier free, you know. Anyone can represent the people if you just have $350,000 lying around. We're not watching the full video here, but we'll get to the main part here. It's at the beginning.
Joins us now. And Jeremy Schroen joins us now from Ottawa with more on this, Jeremy. Some changes, interesting changes, and is this going to make it interesting as to who may run now because of that, especially that steep price there?
Yeah, Roger, definitely some interesting changes. The steep price point when it comes to fundraising, the fundraising threshold that has to be met, which, as you mentioned, goes up to $350,000, up from $75,000 the last time the Liberals were.
And this is why everyone in government is part of the 1%. This is why, you know, here in Ontario, you had leadership races for provincial parties. I think the entry fee was only $50,000 for that. And that's why both the Liberals and the NDP have two people that you can barely distinguish from one another because they're rich. You have to be rich. And when you're rich, you're part of an elitist group. And that's what they want. They want the elites in. So you're never going to see like a union representative, an average Joe, somebody who lives the experience, somebody who's actually struggling with those grocery prices, somebody who's actually precariously housed. You're never going to see an activist or an advocate run for leadership of a party because you have to have a whole fucking lot of money. Like I said, everyone in the sandbox right now. I think if you put through a super chat, so we have what? Watching right now, we have 28 people. So I expect all of you to pitch in over $100,000 each. Or no, over $10,000. I don't know if you can afford the over $100,000, by all means. But I expect everyone who's watching right now to pitch me over $10,000 so that I can run for the leadership. If you're really committed to my channel succeeding, if you're really committed for change in Canada, you got to do that. You got to commit. And this is what a lot of people don't know. It's like, even if for your local parties to be an MP, an MPP, to be a city councillor or a ward councillor, you have to have money up front. Like when we're going down to municipal levels, I think it's only $500 or $1,000, but still, if you're living with poverty, not that doable. And then the higher up you go, with the more power you would have and the more influence you have, the more expensive it gets. And of course, they have an absolutely legit reason for this.
ran a leadership race. The whole goal of this here is to try and dissuade not so serious people from running in this leadership race. It means if you're going to try and run here and have a shot at this, you have to be a serious candidate. 350.
So only serious people can raise $350,000? Is that it? Like those are the only, like it's just to, filter out non-serious candidates. Of course, that's all it's about. It's not about the fundraising. It's about filtering out people who aren't serious. But there's lots of people who are serious that are being filtered out. And to some extent, they're trying to, the whole foreign interference thing, they want to try to avoid that. But, people who are doing the foreign interference, generally speaking, can afford it. How many millions were being spent on right-wing influencers from Tenet, from Russia? They could afford this. This is nothing to them. Like what? They were paying, Tenet Media was paying Tim Pool $100,000 for a video 4 times a month. So in 1 month, they paid more to Tim Pool than they would have to pay for someone to run as a leadership candidate. You're not filtering out the people you want us to believe you're filtering out with this.
$50,000 is no small amount of money, and the window to raise that money is very short. January 23rd is when potential candidates, have to have that fee, that money raised. So certainly the whole point is to make sure that only serious candidates are moving forward with this leadership race.
The point is to make sure that only candidates that we want in can make it, and they have done that before. Like, there have been absolutely serious candidates that the base wants, that they're popular and stuff, but then suddenly there's an increase in the rate that you have to be able to put forth before you can run as the candidate. Or, you know what, there was something a little bit funny about this fundraising. Like, I know you technically raised the $50,000 you needed in order to run for the leadership of the NDP in British Columbia, but we found this little inconsistency there, so we're not going to let it qualify.
Race. We know so far 2 names, Chandra Arya and Frank Baylis, 2 Liberal MPs, have said that they are going to run. That was before any of these details were announced last night. And of course, there are many other names that have been floated. People that have.
So we don't need to get into this part because we're going to get into this part. We don't need to watch this part of this video because we're going to get into some of the leadership contenders. Oh, and the Wild West, thank you for your contribution towards my campaign run for leadership of the Liberal Party. Pitched in $1.49 towards that. We just need math. So 300,000 more of those super chats and we're all there. But also, your first super chat in a live stream? Wow. Super cool. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. With the little black cat in it.